an original story created exclusively for Golden Romance Empire. Emma Bennett stood frozen in white lace as the church fell silent, her bouquet trembling in her hands while whispers rippled through the crowd like poison. The text message on her phone blurred through tears. "I can't marry you. I'm sorry." 300 pairs of eyes watched her humiliation unfold in real time, the perfect wedding transforming into a public execution of her dreams. Then, cutting through the murmurs like a surgeon's blade, came a voice she recognized but never expected, deep, authoritative, belonging to the most formidable man in the city. Lucas Reed, billionaire medical director, approached with measured steps that echoed against the vaulted ceiling, his expression unreadable as he leaned close enough that only she could hear his impossible offer. "They're waiting for a wedding. Let me be the man who stands beside you." Emma's vision tunneled as she stared at the text message one more time. 6 words that demolished her 3-year relationship with James. "I can't marry you. I'm sorry." The magnificent cathedral she'd spent months dreaming about suddenly felt like a cage, with 300 guests witnessing her devastation. Her mother's face crumpled in the front row. Her best friend Charlotte rushed forward, whispering, "Emma, honey, what's happening?" "He's not coming," Emma managed, her voice barely audible. "James isn't coming." The whispers intensified. Someone muttered, "Poor thing." Another voice, "Always knew he was too good for her." The pitying glances were worse than outright cruelty. Sad smiles and averted eyes as people began shifting uncomfortably in the pews. Emma felt herself swaying. The cathedral's stained glass windows blurred into kaleidoscopic smears as tears filled her eyes. This wasn't happening. Not to her. Not after everything she'd overcome in life. That's when she noticed him. Lucas Reed, standing at the back of the church. His presence was jarring. He wasn't even on the guest list. As the hospital's director and chief of cardiac surgery, Lucas was James's boss. But they weren't friends. In fact, James complained constantly about the man's impossible standards. Lucas moved forward with deliberate steps, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the festive wedding attire surrounding him. At 42, he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. Emma had seen him at hospital functions, always distant, always watching, always in control. Now he was watching her collapse. "Everyone is staring," she whispered as he approached. "Let them," Lucas replied, his voice low and steady. "You have nothing to be ashamed of." Emma laughed bitterly. 300 people are watching me. Yet stood up at the altar. I'd say that's pretty shameful." Lucas studied her face with clinical detachment, then did something completely unexpected. He took her trembling hand in his. "They're waiting for a wedding," he said. "Let me be the man who stands beside you." Emma blinked, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "Marry me instead," he clarified, his expression unchanged. "Right now." "You're insane," she hissed, trying to pull away. "I barely know you." "You know enough," he countered. "You know I'm not the type of man who would humiliate you like this." The murmuring in the church grew louder. Emma could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes, the smartphones surely capturing her shame. Tomorrow everyone would know how pathetic Emma Bennett had been left at the altar. "Why would you do this?" she asked, searching his face for mockery or pity. "I have my reasons," Lucas answered. "And you need a way out of this moment with your dignity intact. It's a practical solution." Practical. Of course, a man like Lucas would see marriage as a business transaction. Yet something in his steady gaze anchored her amid the chaos. Charlotte grabbed her arm. "Emma, you can't seriously. Do you have a better idea?" Emma whispered desperately. The officiant approached, confusion evident. "Miss Bennett, perhaps we should." "The wedding will proceed," Lucas interrupted, his authoritative tone brooking no argument. "There's been a change in plans. I'll be taking the groom's place." A collective gasp rippled through the cathedral. Emma's mind raced. This was madness. Yet the alternative, walking back down that aisle alone, facing weeks of pity and gossip, seemed unbearable. Lucas Reed was offering her an escape, however bizarre. In that split second, something hardened inside her. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was survival instinct. Or maybe it was the chance to transform humiliation into something that would leave everyone speechless. "Yes," she heard herself say. "The wedding continues. And just like that, Emma found herself standing beside Lucas Reed, exchanging vows with a virtual stranger, while her intended groom was nowhere to be found. His responses were calm and measured, as if he performed emergency marriages every day. When he slid a ring onto her finger, his own signet ring, hastily removed, Emma felt herself cross a threshold from which there would be no return. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, looking as stunned as everyone else. Lucas's kiss was brief and formal, a mere brushing of lips that sealed their improbable contract. As they turned to face the congregation, Emma caught her mother's horrified expression, Charlotte's open-mouthed shock, and hundreds of confused faces staring back at them. Lucas leaned close to her ear. "Smile," he instructed. "We've given them something to talk about besides your heartbreak." With her hand firmly clasped in his, Emma walked down the aisle as Mrs. Lucas Reed, having no idea what she'd just agreed to. The reception that followed was surreal. Emma moved through it like a sleepwalker, accepting congratulations from bewildered guests who didn't quite know what to say. Lucas remained at her side, his hand occasionally guiding the small of her back, playing the part of devoted husband with surprising conviction. "You're very good at this," she murmured as they posed for photographs that had been meant for her and James. "I'm good at everything I do," Lucas replied without a trace of arrogance. It was simply a statement of fact. When the last guest finally departed, Emma found herself alone with Lucas. In the hotel suite that should have been her first night with James, the champagne sat unopened, the rose petals on the bed untouched. "What happens now?" she asked, kicking off her painful heels. Lucas loosened his tie and sat in an armchair, regarding her with that same clinical assessment. "Now we discuss terms of our arrangement," he clarified. "This marriage serves a purpose for both of us." Emma sank onto the edge of the bed, her wedding dress pooling around her. "You still haven't explained why you did this." "The hospital board has been pressuring me to project a more relatable image," Lucas explained. "A stable marriage makes me appear more trustworthy to patients and donors. The bachelor surgeon reputation has run its course, so I'm a career move." Emma couldn't hide her incredulity. "And I was your dignity-preserving exit strategy," he countered smoothly. "We both benefited." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a folded document. "I've had my lawyer prepare this. 1 year of marriage, after which we'll divorce amicably. During that time, we'll present as a devoted couple in public. In private, we lead separate lives." Emma skimmed the contract, her head spinning. "You want me to move into your home? My penthouse has plenty of space. You'll have your own bedroom, bathroom, and study. We'll share common areas. And what about my job, my life? You can continue working as a pediatric nurse at my hospital. In fact, I encourage it. It supports our narrative." Lucas leaned forward. "I'm offering financial security, social standing, and the chance to rewrite today's humiliation into something that makes you look desirable rather than rejected." Emma let out a bitter laugh. "All I have to do is pretend to love you, not love. Respect and compatibility will suffice." His eyes narrowed slightly. "One non-negotiable point: absolute discretion. What happens between us stays between us. No confiding in friends, no diary entries, no social media hints." The businesslike approach to what should have been the most romantic day of her life struck Emma as both absurd and oddly comforting. Lucas wasn't offering false sentiment or pity, just a clean, pragmatic solution. "What about physical expectations?" she forced herself to ask. "There are none," he stated flatly. "This is a marriage of convenience, not desire." Emma studied him, his perfectly controlled expression, the distance he maintained, even while sitting just feet away. Lucas Reed was undeniably attractive, but he wielded his good looks like another tool in his arsenal, not something to be enjoyed. "Why me?" she finally asked. "You could have found someone willing, someone who knew what they were getting into." Something flickered behind his eyes. Opportunity presented itself. "I made a decision." It wasn't the whole truth, but Emma was too exhausted to press further. The alternative, returning to her apartment alone, facing pitying texts and calls, explaining to everyone what had happened, seemed unbearable. 1 year, she said finally, and then we both walk away. Precisely. He offered her a pen. Emma signed the contract, feeling as though she were signing away something more precious than her freedom. Her romantic ideals, perhaps. The belief that marriage should be about love. "We'll move your things tomorrow," Lucas said, tucking the contract away. "For tonight, I've arranged another suite for myself. This one is yours." As he reached the door, Emma called out, "Lucas, thank you, I think." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "Don't thank me, Emma. This is a business arrangement. I expect you to uphold your end professionally." When the door closed behind him, Emma finally allowed herself to cry, not for James's betrayal, but for the strange new reality she'd chosen. Tomorrow, she would wake up as Mrs. Lucas Reed, resident of the glass penthouse that crowned the medical complex like a crystal crown, wife to a man whose heart seemed as unreachable as the stars. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Emma still felt like an intruder in Lucas's penthouse. The sprawling space occupied the entire top floor of the Reed Medical Tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. Everything was pristine, minimalist, and cold, much like its owner. "You haven't unpacked all your boxes," Lucas observed one morning as he prepared his precisely measured protein shake. His morning routine never varied. Up at 5 a.m., exercise for exactly 45 minutes, shower for 7, breakfast while reviewing patient files. "I'm still getting used to the space," Emma replied, nursing her coffee. In truth, she was reluctant to disturb the sterile perfection of his home with her colorful, mismatched possessions. Lucas frowned slightly. "The staff will think it's strange if you don't appear settled." "What staff?" "You barely allow your housekeeper inside." "People notice details, Emma. Our colleagues, hospital board members, potential donors, they're always watching for inconsistencies." Emma sighed. "Has anyone ever told you that you're exhausting to live with?" Something almost like amusement flickered across his face. "Frequently, but never by a wife." The word still felt strange to her ears. Wife, husband. The roles they played with increasing confidence in public, then abandoned the moment they crossed the penthouse threshold. Later that week, Emma returned from her shift to find Lucas preparing for the annual hospital charity gala. He stood before a mirror, adjusting his bow tie with practiced precision. "You're attending with me," he stated, not bothering to phrase it as a question. "I didn't bring anything suitable to wear," Emma protested. Lucas gestured toward her bedroom. "There's a dress. It should fit." Emma found a stunning emerald gown laid across her bed, with matching shoes and jewelry on her dresser. The sight of it, the presumption that he could simply select something for her body, ignited a flash of irritation. "You could have asked," she said when she returned to the living room, the dress draped over her arm. "Would you have preferred to shop? I assumed you'd want to avoid public appearances until necessary." He was right, which only irritated her more. Emma had been avoiding her friends, making excuses to skip social gatherings where she'd have to explain her whirlwind marriage. "Fine," she conceded, "but next time ask." The gala proved more challenging than Emma anticipated. Everyone stared as they entered, whispers following in their wake. Lucas kept a possessive hand at her lower back, leaning close occasionally to murmur observations about key donors or board members. "Dr. Winters is watching us," he noted during their first dance. "He's been skeptical about our marriage from the beginning." "Should I kiss you passionately to convince him?" Emma suggested sarcastically. Lucas's eyes darkened. "That won't be necessary. Just laugh at whatever I say next as though I'm utterly charming." When he whispered something entirely mundane about hospital budgets, Emma threw her head back and laughed as if it were the wittiest comment she'd ever heard. The warm sound surprised even her. It had been weeks since she'd genuinely laughed. "Very convincing," Lucas approved, his hand tightening slightly at her waist. The unexpected contact sent a ripple of awareness through Emma. Lucas Reed might be emotionally distant, but he was undeniably attractive, something she'd managed to ignore till this moment, with his body moving in perfect rhythm with hers. "Everyone's watching us," she murmured. "Good," he replied. "That's the point." As the evening progressed, Emma found herself slipping more naturally into her role. She charmed board members with stories from the pediatric ward, stood proudly beside Lucas during his speech, and even managed to deflect questions about their hasty marriage with practiced ease. "You were impressive tonight," Lucas commented on the drive home, his profile sharp against the city lights. "I'm a good nurse. I know how to make people comfortable. It's more than that. You connect with people in a way I never could." The rare admission hung between them, shifting the atmosphere in the car. For the first time, Emma glimpsed something beneath Lucas's impenetrable exterior, a flicker of self-awareness, perhaps even vulnerability. The moment shattered when his phone rang. Lucas answered immediately, his voice shifting into the clipped, authoritative tone she recognized from the hospital. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, he stated, ending the call. "Emergency surgery. Don't wait up." Just like that, the wall between them reassembled itself. By the time they reached the penthouse, Lucas had mentally departed already, his mind in the operating room where he truly belonged. Emma watched him leave, still wearing her emerald gown, still feeling the ghost of his hand at her waist. Their worlds remained impossibly separate, even as rumors about their passionate romance spread through the hospital corridors. That night, Emma finally unpacked her remaining boxes, arranging her books and photographs alongside Lucas's sparse possessions. If they were going to convince everyone else, perhaps they needed to start by convincing themselves. 2 months into their marriage, the performance began feeling less like an act. Emma found herself anticipating Lucas's rare smiles, cataloging the minute changes in his expression that most people missed. For a man who prided himself on emotional control, Lucas revealed surprising depths when he thought no one was watching. She discovered his passion for classical music when she returned early from a shift, to find him standing motionless before the window, eyes closed as Rachmaninoff filled the penthouse. He didn't notice her presence, and Emma didn't interrupt, mesmerized by the transformation of his usually rigid posture. Their public appearances became more natural. Emma no longer needed to remind herself to touch his arm or lean into his space. It happened instinctively, as did the way Lucas's hand found the small of her back whenever they entered a room together. "You two are sickeningly perfect," Charlotte commented during a rare lunch. After weeks of avoiding her best friend, Emma had finally agreed to meet. "I still can't believe you married Lucas Reed." The Lucas Reed. Emma sipped her water. "Life takes unexpected turns, but you hated him." All those stories James told about the tyrannical boss who made residents cry. "I never hated him," Emma corrected. "I didn't know him, and now I do." The half-truth came easily. Emma had grown protective of Lucas since witnessing his punishing work schedule, the weight of responsibility he carried for every patient under his care. The tyrannical boss was simply a man who refused to accept mediocrity when lives were at stake. "So it's not just for show," Charlotte pressed. "Because the timing was suspicious, Em. Right after James." "I don't want to talk about James," Emma interrupted sharply. Charlotte studied her face. "You've changed." Had she? Emma wondered later as she prepared dinner in the penthouse kitchen. She'd always been adaptable, a necessary trait for a foster child who'd moved between 7 homes before turning 18. Perhaps this was just another adaptation. Lucas returned earlier than usual that evening, his expression more strained than normal. "Rough day?" Emma asked, sliding a glass of wine toward him. "Lost a patient," he answered tersely. 34 years old. 2 children. Emma resisted the urge to offer empty comfort. Instead, she simply said, "Dinner's ready whenever you are." Lucas looked momentarily surprised by her lack of platitudes. "Thank you." They ate in companionable silence, another pattern they'd fallen into. Afterward, Lucas unexpectedly lingered at the table instead of retreating to his study. "My mother called today," he said. "She's insisting we join them for dinner this weekend." Emma nearly choked on her wine. "Your family wants to meet me." "They've been demanding it since they heard about the wedding." His expression tightened. "I've been putting them off. Are you embarrassed by me?" The question slipped out before Emma could stop it. Lucas looked genuinely startled. "No, my family is complicated, particularly my father. You never talk about them." "There's nothing to say." He stood abruptly. "We'll go Saturday. Wear something conservative." The Reed family estate was exactly as Emma had imagined. A sprawling colonial mansion set on manicured grounds, reeking of old money and older expectations. Lucas grew increasingly tense as they approached, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. His parents greeted them in the formal sitting room. Harrison Reed was a silver-haired patriarch with Lucas's height and none of his restraint. Margaret Reed was elegantly preserved, her smile not quite reaching her calculating eyes. "So this is the nurse who captured our son's heart," Harrison boomed, examining Emma like a specimen. "Quite the whirlwind romance, wasn't it?" "When you know, you know," Emma replied smoothly, feeling Lucas stiffen beside her. Dinner was an exercise in subtle hostility. Harrison questioned Emma about her background, her education, her family, or lack thereof. Each answer seemed to confirm his suspicions that she was unsuitable. Lucas was engaged once before. Margaret mentioned casually over dessert to Alexandra Winters, a neurosurgeon from an excellent family. "Mother," Lucas warned. "What happened?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. "She died," Lucas stated flatly. "Car accident, 5 years ago." The revelation stunned Emma. Lucas had never mentioned a fiancée, let alone one who died tragically. "Such a shame," Harrison sighed. "She was perfect for him, for the Reed legacy." "And what exactly is the Reed legacy?" Emma asked, her patience wearing thin. "Excellence," Harrison replied. "Something this hospital merger you're opposing could jeopardize, Lucas." Lucas's expression hardened. "I won't sacrifice patient care for profit margins." "You're being stubborn," Harrison snapped. "The board is losing patience." "Then they can find another medical director." The tension crackled between father and son. Emma sensed years of similar arguments beneath this one, a fundamental clash of values disguised as a business disagreement. "Lucas believes patients deserve better than assembly line health care," Emma interjected, surprising everyone, including herself. "He's fighting to maintain standards, while you're pushing for shortcuts that could cost lives." Harrison's face darkened. "You know nothing about—" "She knows exactly what she's talking about," Lucas interrupted. "Emma sees the impact of administrative decisions every day in pediatrics. She understands what's at stake better than most of the board." The fierce defense left Emma momentarily speechless. Lucas had never spoken about her work with such detailed knowledge or appreciation. The drive home was silent until they were halfway back to the city. "You didn't have to defend me," Lucas finally said. "Yes, I did. Your father was being unfair." Lucas glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. "Most people don't stand up to Harrison Reed." "I'm not most people," Emma replied, "and I meant what I said. What you're doing matters." When they reached the penthouse, Lucas paused before heading to his room. "Alexandra wasn't perfect for me," he said quietly, "no matter what my parents believe." The admission hung in the air between them, a small crack in the facade he maintained so carefully. "Lucas," Emma called as he turned away. "Thank you for telling me about her." He nodded once, then disappeared into his room, leaving Emma with more questions than answers about the man she was slowly, dangerously, beginning to care for. Emma couldn't stop thinking about Alexandra Winters. The name circled in her mind during shifts, during quiet evenings in the penthouse, during the increasingly comfortable silences she shared with Lucas. Who had this woman been? What had she meant to the closed-off man Emma was beginning to understand? One rainy Sunday, with Lucas called away for an emergency consultation, Emma found herself wandering into his study, a space she rarely entered. The room was meticulously organized, with medical journals arranged by publication date and patient files stacked in precise order. She trailed her fingers along the bookshelves, noting the worn spines of medical texts and the occasional classic novel. Behind his desk hung his diplomas and certifications, a testament to his brilliance. Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins residency, cardiothoracic fellowship at Mayo Clinic. A cabinet beneath the window was locked, the only secured space in the entire penthouse. Emma's curiosity flared, then dimmed with shame. She had no right to pry into Lucas's private possessions. As she turned to leave, her elbow knocked against a shelf, dislodging a heavy book that tumbled to the floor. Emma bent to retrieve it, finding herself staring at a medical school yearbook. The page had fallen open to the graduating class, with a younger Lucas staring soberly from among his peers. She was about to close it when a name caught her eye. Alexandra Winters, listed just a few entries after Lucas Reed. Without thinking, Emma flipped to the index, then to the page featuring Alexandra. The woman who smiled back was strikingly familiar. Blonde hair, bright eyes, a confident smile. Emma felt a chill race down her spine. Alexandra Winters looked remarkably like her cousin Lily, who had died 5 years ago in a car accident. It couldn't be a coincidence. With trembling hands, Emma pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos until she found one of Lily. The resemblance to Alexandra was undeniable. But that made no sense. Lily had been engaged to a pharmaceutical executive named Alexander, not a surgeon. They had been planning their wedding when the accident occurred. Emma had been devastated. Lily was the closest thing to a sister she'd ever had. Unless... Emma's mind raced, connecting fragments that had never quite made sense. James's sudden interest in her, after they met at a hospital fundraiser 3 years ago. His persistent questions about her cousin. His abrupt abandonment at the altar, coinciding with Lucas's unexpected appearance. The door to the study opened, startling Emma so badly she dropped the yearbook. Lucas stood in the doorway, his expression darkening as he took in the scene. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Emma rose slowly, still clutching her phone with Lily's photo displayed. "Alexandra Winters," she said. "She wasn't just your fiancée, was she? She was my cousin Lily." Lucas went completely still, the color draining from his face. For several seconds, the only sound was the rain against the windows. "How long have you known?" Emma finally asked. "Since before our wedding," he admitted, his voice hollow. "I recognized you the first time James brought you to a hospital function." "Did you tell James to leave me at the altar?" The question burned through her. Lucas's silence was answer enough. "You blackmailed him," Emma realized. "With what?" "James was falsifying research data for a drug trial. I had proof. Lucas's clinical detachment had returned. I simply informed him that marrying you would be unwise." Emma felt sick. "So our marriage was never about your image or my dignity. It was about, what? Guilt. Revenge. It wasn't that simple." "Then explain it to me," Emma demanded, her voice rising. "Why orchestrate this elaborate charade? Why marry your dead fiancé's cousin?" Lucas moved to the locked cabinet, unlocked it with a key from his pocket, and withdrew a file. "Your cousin wasn't Alexandra Winters," he said quietly. "Alexandra Winters was your cousin. She changed her name when she left her family behind." Emma accepted the file with shaking hands. Inside were newspaper clippings about Lily's, Alexandra's, accident, police reports, and photographs of a mangled car. "Lily cut ties with her family after college," Emma said slowly. "She said they were toxic, controlling. She only kept in touch with me." "She reinvented herself completely," Lucas confirmed. "Medical school, new name, new life. I met her during our residency." "But why didn't she tell me she was engaged to you?" "Why the fiction about Alexander the pharmaceutical executive?" Lucas's expression tightened with pain. "Because I was the reason she died." The confession hung in the air between them. "We argued that night," he continued, each word clearly costing him. "About my work hours, my priorities. She left angry in the rain. The accident was..." He stopped, composing himself. "I should have stopped her. I should have gone after her." Emma stared at the man before her, seeing for the first time the guilt he carried beneath his controlled exterior. "That doesn't explain why you married me. When I saw you with James, I recognized Lily in you, your mannerisms, your laugh. It was unsettling." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation. "Then I discovered James was using you to gain connections to the hospital board, while simultaneously cheating on you with a pharmaceutical rep. So you decided to save me." Emma's voice dripped with sarcasm. "I decided to prevent history from repeating itself," Lucas corrected. "I couldn't save Lily from a man who didn't deserve her. But I could save you from James. By trapping me in a fake marriage." Emma shook her head in disbelief. "You had no right to manipulate my life this way." "No," Lucas agreed quietly. "I didn't." The truth lay exposed between them. The real foundation of their marriage revealed as guilt, grief, and secrets. Emma felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her feet, leaving her suspended in a free fall of betrayal. "I need to leave," she whispered, backing toward the door. I I can't be here right now. Lucas didn't try to stop her as she fled the penthouse, taking nothing but her phone and the devastating knowledge that the life she'd been living for months was built on a lie far more complex than she'd imagined. Emma spent the night in Charlotte's guest room, her friend mercifully asking no questions beyond. "Are you okay?" The answer was clearly no. How could she be okay when everything she thought she knew had been upended? By morning, Emma's shock had hardened into resolve. She would not be a pawn in Lucas's guilt-driven atonement. She would confront him, end their sham marriage, and reclaim control of her life. Her determination faltered when she arrived at the hospital for her shift and found chaos in the lobby. Reporters clustered near the entrance. Cameras flashing as security held them back. On the lobby television, a news anchor spoke gravely beside Lucas's professional headshot. Allegations that Dr. Reed's negligence contributed to patient deaths during experimental procedures. The hospital board is meeting today to determine if he should be suspended pending investigation. Emma froze, her personal crisis momentarily forgotten. Lucas was many things: controlling, secretive, emotionally closed off, but negligent with patients. Never. She'd witnessed his obsessive attention to detail, his refusal to compromise on care standards. She hurried to the pediatric ward, where her colleague Mia was already checking on patients. "What's happening with Dr. Reed?" Emma asked. Mia looked up, her expression grim. "Someone leaked confidential files to the press about his experimental valve procedure. They're saying he knew the risks were higher than reported, and proceeded anyway." "That's absurd," Emma protested. "Lucas would never." "The board's emergency meeting starts in an hour," Mia interrupted. "Word is, they're going to suspend him." Emma's mind raced. The timing was too convenient, right after Lucas had opposed Harrison Reed's push for the hospital merger. This wasn't about patient care. It was about silencing opposition. Without conscious decision, Emma found herself heading toward the boardroom. Lucas might have manipulated her life, but she wouldn't stand by while his reputation was destroyed by lies. She arrived to find Lucas already seated before the board, his expression impassive as Harrison Reed presented evidence against him. Emma slipped inside, standing at the back of the room. Lucas noticed her immediately, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before his mask returned. "The data clearly shows Dr. Reed proceeded with the valve procedure, despite knowing the mortality risk was significantly higher than what he reported to patients," Harrison was saying. "This constitutes a serious breach of ethics." "That's not what the data shows at all," Lucas countered evenly. The comparative mortality rates were clearly outlined in the consent forms. The leaked documents were deliberately taken out of context. "Nevertheless," interjected Dr. Winters, Alexandra's father. Emma realized with a jolt. The public perception is damaging to the hospital. A temporary suspension would allow for a thorough investigation. Emma suddenly understood the full picture. This wasn't just Harrison Reed silencing his son. This was also Richard Winters punishing the man he blamed for his daughter's death. "May I address the board?" Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding. All heads turned toward her. Harrison Reed's expression darkened. "This is a closed meeting, Mrs. Reed." "I believe I have relevant information," Emma insisted, moving to stand beside Lucas. She felt his tension, though he didn't look at her. "Let her speak," said Dr. Helen Chen, the chief of pediatrics and Emma's direct supervisor. Emma took a deep breath. "I know why these allegations are surfacing now, and it has nothing to do with patient care. This is about the merger that Dr. Reed opposes, and about a personal vendetta that's been 5 years in the making." She turned to face Dr. Winters directly. "Your daughter Alexandra was my cousin Lily. I didn't know she'd changed her identity until yesterday, but I knew her heart. She believed in ethical medicine above all else, exactly what Lucas fights for every day." Murmurs rippled through the room. Dr. Winters paled visibly. "The experimental valve procedure you're questioning has saved 17 lives that conventional approaches would have lost," Emma continued. "I've worked with those patients in recovery. I've seen their families' gratitude. Every risk was explained in detail. I know because Lucas reviews every consent form personally, sometimes for hours." She placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. feeling the rigid tension beneath her palm. You're not evaluating his medical judgment today. You're punishing him for standing in the way of a merger that would prioritize profit over patient care. And for loving a woman who died tragically. The room fell silent. Lucas finally looked up at her, his expression a complex mixture of surprise and something deeper, more vulnerable. "Mrs. Reed," Harrison began, his voice tight with anger. "You have no place." "Actually," interrupted Dr. Chen, "she has exactly the right place. As both a nurse who sees the direct impact of administrative decisions, and as someone with a unique perspective on the personal allegations underlying this situation." She turned to the board members. "I move that we dismiss these charges as baseless and instead investigate who leaked confidential patient information to the press." The mood in the room shifted perceptibly. Board members exchanged glances, whispered consultations. Dr. Winters stared at Emma, seeing perhaps for the first time the echo of his daughter in her features, her determination. "I second the motion," he said quietly, surprising everyone. The vote that followed was decisive. The allegations against Lucas were dismissed, and an investigation into the leaked documents was ordered instead. As the meeting adjourned, Emma slipped out before Lucas could approach her. She needed space to process everything. Her defense of him despite his deception. The complicated grief connecting them both to Alexandra Lilly. Lucas found her hours later on the hospital roof, a quiet spot where staff sometimes retreated during difficult shifts. He approached cautiously, stopping several feet away. "Thank you," he said simply. Emma gazed out at the city lights emerging as dusk fell. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was true, nevertheless." He moved beside her at the railing. "You had every reason to let them destroy me after what I revealed yesterday. That's not who I am." Emma turned to face him. "I'm not someone who uses truth as a weapon." Lucas absorbed the implicit criticism with a slight nod. "I've never been good with emotions," he admitted. "After Alexandra died, I shut down completely. Work became everything. Then I saw you, and it was like seeing a ghost." "I'm not her," Emma said firmly. "No," Lucas agreed. "You're stronger, more direct. She would have appreciated that about you." He hesitated. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." "Yes, you should have." Emma studied his face, seeing the exhaustion etched there. The weight of secrets finally lifted. "Why didn't you?" "I told myself it was to protect you. But really, I was protecting myself from having to face what happened." Lucas's gaze held hers. "I never expected to care about you, Emma. That wasn't part of the plan." The admission hung between them, unexpected and transformative. For the first time, Lucas had spoken without calculation or control, a simple truth that changed everything. "Where do we go from here?" Emma asked. "That depends on what you want," Lucas replied. "Our contract still stands if you wish to continue. Or we can begin divorce proceedings immediately." Emma considered the man before her, brilliant, damaged, finally honest. "I think," she said slowly, "we need to start over, not as a contract, not as a performance, but as two people who might have something real to build. If we're both brave enough to try." Lucas extended his hand, a gesture both formal and profoundly vulnerable. "Hello, I'm Lucas Reed. I'm a surgeon with trust issues and a terrible fear of emotional honesty. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Despite everything." Emma found herself smiling as she took his hand. "I'd like that very much." 11 months after their improbable wedding, Emma sat in Lucas's study, watching him review patient files. Their relationship had transformed gradually, painfully at times, into something neither had anticipated. The careful distance had given way to genuine partnership, built on hard-earned trust and unexpected compatibility. They'd established new patterns. Sunday brunches on their terrace, evening walks through the city, honest conversations about Alexandra Lilly that helped them both process their grief. Lucas had even begun accompanying Emma to the children's ward, where his formal demeanor softened around the young patients. "Our anniversary is next week," Emma remarked, setting aside her book. Lucas looked up, his expression unreadable. "Yes, the end of our contractual year." The reminder sent an unexpected pang through Emma. Despite everything, the deception at the beginning, the painful revelations, she wasn't ready for this to end. I've had my lawyer prepare the divorce papers, Lucas continued, opening his desk drawer. He withdrew a folder and placed it between them on the coffee table. As agreed. Emma stared at the folder, a lump forming in her throat. I see. The terms are straightforward. The penthouse remains mine. But I've purchased a condo in your name in the building across the street. Your financial settlement should allow you complete independence. The clinical approach was so typically Lucas that Emma almost laughed. Even now, he retreated behind practicalities when emotions became too complex. Very thorough, she managed, not touching the folder. Lucas watched her carefully. Is there something else you wanted? Everything inside Emma rebelled against the idea of walking away. The past year had shown her a man worth knowing. Complicated, flawed, but ultimately good. A man who had learned, painfully and imperfectly, how to open himself to connection again. What if I don't want a divorce? She asked quietly. Lucas went very still. The contract. I'm not talking about the contract. Emma moved to kneel before him, taking his hands in hers. I'm talking about us. The real us, not the performance we created. Confusion flickered across Lucas's face. You want to stay married? I want to get married, Emma clarified. For real this time. No audience, no contracts, no ulterior motives. Just us, choosing each other with our eyes wide open. Lucas stared at her, his customary composure shaken. After everything I did, the manipulation, the lies. The truth eventually, Emma interrupted. The courage to change. The willingness to be vulnerable. She squeezed his hands. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but it's been real, Lucas. More real than anything I've known. For a moment, he said nothing. And Emma feared she'd misread everything. Then slowly, Lucas slid from the chair to kneel facing her, their hands still joined. I don't deserve this chance, he said hoarsely. Probably not, Emma agreed with a small smile. But I'm offering it anyway. Lucas reached up to touch her face, the gesture tender in a way that still surprised her. Then yes, he answered simply. Yes to marrying you properly. Yes to building something honest together. Their second wedding couldn't have been more different from the first. No cathedral, no hundreds of guests, no desperate performance. Just Emma and Lucas on the rooftop garden of the hospital, with Charlotte and Dr. Chen as witnesses. Emma wore a simple blue dress. Lucas, for once, wore no tie. Their vows were brief but sincere, promises of honesty, partnership, and the courage to keep choosing each other through difficulty. When Lucas slipped a ring onto Emma's finger, not a hasty substitute this time, but a band he'd chosen carefully, his hands were steady, his eyes clear. 6 months later, they established the Winters Reed Foundation for grief counseling and support, honoring Alexandra's memory. While creating something healing from their shared loss, Dr. Winters attended the opening ceremony, beginning his own journey toward reconciliation with the past. On their second anniversary, their first real one, as Emma thought of it, Lucas presented her with a small box over dinner. Another contract, Emma teased, opening it to find a delicate silver pendant. Not exactly, Lucas replied, unusually hesitant. It's a sonogram image. I had it made into a pendant until we're ready to share the news. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. How did you know? I just found out yesterday. I'm a doctor, Lucas reminded her with a rare smile. I noticed symptoms. And you've been glowing for weeks. Emma touched the pendant, tears welling in her eyes. Are you happy about this? Lucas moved to kneel beside her chair, placing his hand gently over her still flat stomach. Terrified, he admitted. But yes, happier than I ever thought possible, as he held her. Emma reflected on their improbable journey, from a desperate bargain at an altar to a genuine love built on the ruins of their separate griefs. Their child would be born into a home created from second chances and hard-won truth, carrying forward a legacy not of perfect appearances, but of the courage to begin again. I love you, Lucas whispered against her hair. Words that had once seemed impossible from his lips, now spoken easily, naturally. I know, Emma replied, holding tight to the man who had stepped into her life on her worst day, and against all odds, helped create her best ones. I've always known.